So these are really important points. And these are points that the defendants in her future case are trying to obfuscate. And these are the points that the media is very clearly supporting them. And one of the things I love about federal lawsuits is what's called discovery. Once you're in a federal lawsuit, you can go after their phone records, their bank records, all of their emails, and you begin to find which journalists are on the payroll and which journalists have received phone calls and so forth. So I just want to put on the record me reading on the camera a few points of consideration, not necessarily conclusion, but consideration. Number one, and these are in the witness's words, so I'm reading for her. The family court found that I have positive wealth. Number two, I am not statute barred 6 years from November 2013 to November 2019. Number three, she is the named beneficiary of bonds that pay out on fraud and dishonesty with collusion from others within the professions that have been so engaged in this case. Number four, those obstructing and causing delay in enforcement have no capacity or standing. Consequently, they are or should be ineffective. Number five, obstruction gives me, the defendant, a cause of action versus those obstructing and seeking to permanently alienate her from her estate. Number six, she can recover money damages from obstructors equivalent to the value of the estate which has been alienated. Now, in the lucky or blessed category, real bankruptcies involve investigations by the state. Number two, the family court's judgment implicitly belies that her husband, Scott Young, was not actually bankrupt. Number three, she has a cause of action against her obstructors with their insurance backing, meaning she doesn't have to go after the pieces of the estate itself. She can go after the people who stole the estate directly. Number four, no one has challenged the assets on the grounds that they were gambled away or recklessly invested. People have tried to cause her to abandon this just quest, but there's absolutely no evidence. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary, that the estate is very real and has not been lost. It's been stolen. Five, obstructors have not told the truth in court. By virtue of their perjury, they are now disapplied from the privilege in the future. Number six, there are publicly accessible claim forms versus those obstructing that the witness can use, that the plaintiff can use. Number seven, fighting on enforcement is new to police but can be translated, i.e. identity theft. Number eight, obstructors include those caught under the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, an SEC aspect not triggered to date, and she makes specific reference to Arthur J. Gallagher. Number nine, she has a cause of action versus the auditor of FRP, the Financial Reporting Council, as well as reporting obligation and escalation opportunities. And number 10, the auditor of Arthur J. Gallagher has been informed she can do more with this. So with that as an introduction, I want to prompt Ms. Young, whom I've interviewed at length, up to 6 hours, to make certain points. And so I'd like to start by asking you to tell us in your own words about how your husband created his fortune. Where did the money come from, the contacts, and so forth?
I met Scott in 1987 through a friend, and we fell madly in love, and after a while we went to live with my parents at their farm in Essex. And within that time, my father was a very successful businessman. And so my father adored Scott, so it's like a father-son relationship. And so my father taught him a lot about business, gave him some very good contacts. My father financed him. I was very successful in the fashion industry, and I helped finance Scott in the very beginning. So the money was made during the marriage. We were happily married. We had 2 daughters. We got married in 1995. And, we had a wonderful life. We were very privileged. We had incredible estates with 200 acres, and we used to fly first class on yachts and all the rest of it, but we were happily married. We were even though we had all those big houses and all those things, we led a very simple life. the four of us together with lots of animals. The marriage, as Scott became more and more successful, he got involved with some very prominent businessmen and was spending more time in London. And then I found out in 2005 that he'd been having an affair. And I decided to leave him in 2006. It was actually November the 5th, 2006, fireworks night. That's when it all started. And when I came back to London, I filed for divorce. And then, I just realised the first day I ever walked into the family courtroom that judges, a particular judge at that time, ignored the law, ignored the evidence. As I came outside that courtroom, that's when I realised there was something wrong with the system, and that was day one. There were lots of other people standing outside the courtroom door, women crying, men looking very distressed. And I realised with my own case after that first hearing, there's something wrong with the system. And then I've spent the last 11 years investigating exactly what's wrong with the system. And from that investigation, I found out that the majority of the cases in this country, whether they go through the insolvency courts, the family courts, the people are just not getting justice. There's no remedy within our British justice system.
If I may, which came first, the divorce or moving all of his money offshore through intermediaries?
Well, what happened, I think he found out in 2006. I went to see a divorce lawyer. So when he was in London, when we was actually living in Miami, I had a phone call from this same lawyer, Stephen David Jones, who restructured the assets, to say, Scott's in the Priory, he's lost all the money, and he's been having an affair. My daughters were with me. I was in my bedroom in Miami, and we were just all utterly, the three of us were shocked. But our first worry was the fact he's in the Priory. Where is he? He's not well. I phoned every priory in England, and he wasn't in any of them. And this was all part of the plan with the assets.
So with all that you know, do you believe now that the lawyer was lying to you when he told you he had lost all his money?
100% he was lying, because 2 years into the litigation in 2008, Scott gave my daughters 2 laptops to do their homework. And on those laptops, we retrieved information, which he had wiped the information, but we retrieved it because I used an ex-Scotland Yard detective and found assets of over 800 million. And not only the fact that he was a legal and beneficial owner of those assets, but he was the owner of all the trusts and the foundations where he'd moved the assets offshore. He'd used 30 law firms, 30 banks, and 8 asset management companies.
If I might draw the Justice's attention to page 11 and on of the witness's submission to the court, it documents all that was found on these laptops, which were irrefutably the prior possession of her husband, and irrefutably this data has been recovered by a forensic specialist, and it's sufficient just to know that this documentation exists. Now, we've already discussed the Russian mafia stories as a distraction, so I don't really want to go there, but I do want to follow up on your husband's murder. Please tell me in your own words, what causes you to believe that he would not have jumped out of that window by himself?
The thing is, Scott was absolutely petrified of heights, so I know for a fact there's no way he would have jumped out of any window. I think also the position in which Scott was found impaled onto the railings was so far away from the window that it was impossible for him to have landed where he supposedly did.
Were there any ornaments or anything on the window that he might have dislodged?
There were ornaments on the windowsill that were untouched. They hadn't been moved. So, and I think what's really important here is the inquiry was closed down so quickly with the police. There was no forensic work done. The police said there were no cameras around, so they never had any film and any evidence of anything. And the last person to see him alive was his girlfriend of the time, Noelle Reno, who, when she left the apartment, within 15 minutes, he'd been found dead. And she was then allowed to stay in that apartment 2 days later after he had been found. And my daughters went there 2 days later, and her assistant and her were shredding documents before my daughters arrived. Now, she has not been ever thoroughly investigated. The lawyer, Stephen David Jones, during divorce proceedings, with blatant evidence showing in the family courts, not only should I have won that case in 2008 with that evidence, because it was obvious that these were his assets and where he'd moved them to, with which professional firms, but it also showed that Stephen David Jones was lying under oath in the family courts. The family courts, the same as in whether it's a divorce case or a child case, they don't deal with perjury. So you can go into a family court and you can lie through your teeth, and the judge will say, you'll have to take it to the police. If you go to the police, they say, we can't do anything, it's a civil matter. So the Law Society, it's self-regulated. The Insolvency Service is self-regulated. So in this country, whether you've got nowhere to go. So I sympathise with the child abuse victims, and the same as us with financial fraud. I believe it's interlinked by the same people that are committing these crimes. And there is nowhere for any of us to go. We do not have a voice. And I'm speaking on behalf of all the other people across this country that I deal with on a daily basis, who are calling me whether they've lost their children or they've lost their homes. And this devastation in this country, someone has to address this. It has to come to an end, because either way, it's a form of enslavement and torture on humanity.
It sounds as if you're saying that the family courts and the insolvency courts are used to, on the one hand, convert children into cash. And I'm not trying to lead you as much as paint this mental picture. So the family courts are being used to strip children from their family and convert them into cash. And the insolvency courts are used to destroy families and strip them of their wealth.
Absolutely.
So it's the same machine?
Absolutely.
Is it the same registrars, the same lawyers, the same judges?
Absolutely, every time. And you know, it's just clear this is not the minority of cases. This is happening in the majority of cases.
Let me ask you about that, because you have been, by design, very public about this. Mm-hmm. And although much of that publicity has been negative and has been designed to carry out a narrative that is against you, it's drawn people to you. Speaking in general terms, of all the people that have been drawn to you with similar cases, what can you say about this larger group, of which your case is simply one of the best developed, because no one else has the actual proof of the assets in existence?
From what I'm seeing, the torture and the heartbreak towards the people of this country and the children, this is why I'm sitting here today, is it just has to come to an end. And the only way we can make this come to an end is we have to set up an independent court system and have an independent government, people that are elected, that are not going to be bribed and use officials to do the dirty work for them. I'm sorry, I'm just being really blatantly honest.
No, this is excellent. And I have already shown the justices the documents from page 7 through 9, and we've had a commissioner testify that each of these documents does indeed look most irregular. Could you just comment on not necessarily who did the annotations, but the nature of the annotations and what kind of expertise they represent?
Well, I'm working with a lot of victims who have spent, some of them who've never had justice in 25 years. One of them, he is an insolvency expert, a Mr. Ebert, who helps lots of other victims, and he's brilliant at looking at these documents, and he can see within three minutes whether they're forged or not. And nearly every single case that comes to him, they're forged documents. So what he did, he's got a little team. So not only are they using a false instrument to asset strip people, but we've then checked that there's no computerized records with the MOJ. And that is, we've got 100, I think it's around 180,000 cases that we can prove there are no computerized records.
This next question goes beyond the documentation, and it's addressed to all three of you. What I would like you to do, starting with Michele Young and then moving down, is give me a list of all of the people who have died in relation to this case that you know of. Well, Scott Young, of course, is one.
Yes, there are 14 suspicious deaths around this one case, and not one of them have been investigated by our police force. Not one.
Can you give us some names? 14.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The other person is Boris Berezovsky, and he also went bankrupt, and Grant Thornton never found any assets. Same perpetrators.
Any other names?
They call them the Cipriani Five. I mean, can you think of some of the other people that we've investigated?
The prince that drove 200 miles to jump from a Hilton window.
There was the one that died in the helicopter crash.
Yes, that was I think that was Robert Curtis. He was a lawyer.
You could submit to the court a list of 14 names and the circumstances of your death.
Yeah, especially with...
I think it's been in
We'll
the media.
take that for action at a later
Yes.
date. All right, that's lovely. I'm going to move us right along. And Michele, you'll have a chance to...
Apologies. The reason I'm angry and I'm frustrated for everyone that suffered, because there's nowhere for any of us to go.
Yes.
Well, this is a good start, and it's been quite clear to me that you're not only...
Yes.
It's been quite clear to me that you're not only seeking justice for your daughters and yourself, but that you also have some solutions for the future. You've talked to people about changes that could be made that would be helpful. Do you care to talk about that, or leave it for another time?
I think leave that for another time.
All right. Then I have already read the summary of what I perceive to be her legal situation from her point of view. Let me just ask you, are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with us before the justices have an opportunity to ask you questions?
I would really like, my case is very simple regarding the assets. If I can recover some of this money, I will put money into good use to help all the causes that have been mentioned in this courtroom for the last 3 days. And I will not stop. If I recovered all my assets tomorrow, I've seen too much harm against humanity to sit back somewhere and just forget everything I've seen. So I'm here to make sure this system is cleaned up once and for all, so that the 99% in this world can have a decent life, no wars, no poverty, and children can be left in peace, and the same as adults and families.
That's lovely. May I invite the justices?
This might be painful. Your husband's death.
Yes.
Was there a coroner's inquest?
There was actually.
And where was that? Where did that take place?
That was in Westminster, and that was an open verdict. They couldn't rule out it was murder, and they couldn't rule out it was suicide. Yeah,
I've seen the photograph there. It would appear that he either flew through the air or was thrown and not dropped.
Yes.
You know, it's quite a distance. Did the police take the railing away? Because I noticed there's tape across it.
Yes, I think they had to, because his body was impaled on the railing, so they had to.
And you said his body was decomposed when you
Well, it was very strange, because after he was found, I knew that there was something wrong, because this case, it just unravels one layer of corruption after another. So I wanted to, I wanted to see evidence that it was Scott.
Yes.
The police, because I wasn't next to kin, would not let me see the body until 6 weeks after. And by the time I saw the body was so badly decomposed, I couldn't recognise the body as being Scott.
Did anyone recognise him as Scott?
The only person that saw the body was my brother-in-law. I'd rather not say, actually.
No.
Chief Justice, I did consider the possibility that he's still alive.
Yes,
And we
so
did
did
discuss the DNA possibilities. He was apparently interred rather than cremated. So I lean toward he's actually dead, because had it been done properly, they would have cremated the body after it decomposed
If they had
to leave
control
no
of the
trace. But if he were still alive, that would explain one of the reasons why Grant Thornton has been so viciously aggressive about defending itself. However, I lean toward this was just another asset stripping case.
Yes. Yeah, look, I think on that part of it, we leave that open to be determined at another date.
I think the only thing, as I've said, I'm going to have to step away from the vote on the bench, as it were. But I would like to commend you on your bravery, especially in the face of the things that you've said and the things that have happened to you, but also have happened to other people, which have obviously been fatal. And I commend everyone for coming forward in relation to this.
I would like to echo and repeat what my learned brother Justice has said. You have our admiration. I think you have the admiration of everyone in this room, and you'll have the admiration of everyone who sees the film. What we would like to do would be to invite you to submit any further documentation, and we will consider it and come to a decision at a later date. But the preliminary view is, after listening to the evidence you presented, IWOCG evidence, as well as the documentation, it appears there's a very strong prima facie case of fraud, corruption, possibly murder, and certainly obfuscation, if not deliberate misfeasance and maladministration on the part of the court legal system, the receivers, and it's. In fact, I was speaking to during the break about receivers and liquidators. They are lawyers and accountants, but in every country I've been in, one could say they're not highly regarded because they step in like vultures and pluck the corpse. I had dealings with a matter I was involved in as counsel before I took on this appointment. There was $4 million involved, and at the end of the receivership, the shareholders got nothing, the creditors got nothing, but the receiver's firm got $4 million in legal costs.
I have served on the ecclesiastical court, the Supreme Court, for a number of years. Certainly everything was either in Arabic or in Hebrew, not in English. So I would not use legal terms, as it were. Just wondering, asking one or two questions. Do you have another citizenship besides what you have?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
You said, or that's what I got, that this lady with whom he fell in love was with him in that apartment from where his body was thrown, and there was no sign of blood, which means he was dead before they threw him, isn't it?
There was actually lots of blood, I think.
There was?
Yes.
Was she there with him before?
She left 15 minutes before he was found.
15 minutes before
he was found.
Before he was found.
Yes.
Is she still around?
I think she has something like 20 million in her bank account. So
already?
Yes. So.
Oh.
She's still in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but they didn't check whether she has other accounts.
America?
She's American.
No.
Yes.
They didn't check whether she has other.
She's never been. She's never been investigated
about money.
As a lawyer. I mean, going back to the family courts, that's what was so appalling. The evidence I have is blatant. You know, that's why I've always been confident that I will win, because it's computerised records, which makes this case unique because no one's ever had that kind of evidence.
Yeah.
But the family judge, the lawyer who actually stole the assets, the judge at my family hearing cleared his name during the proceedings. knowing that there was blatant evidence that he was implicated in moving the assets offshore.
And last question about the different figures that you have mentioned on page 11, I think.
Yes.
Was there a date against every figure of those, or only the numbers? So much in this account without a date?
No, there was dates. Both
There
those
was a
asset
date.
schedules are dated. One's dated 2006 with his commercial lawyers, and the bank account with Coutts with 318 million is dated 2002. But then I gave the court documents showing other accounts that Scott owned through companies he owned, and which advisors he'd used in the UK and offshore to move those assets. So it was in black and white. It was solid, hard evidence that was ignored by the family courts.
This hearing is adjourned sine die. That means to a date to be fixed. It will not be too far in the future, and we note that the preliminary findings would indicate that the applicant's case has been made out.
Thank you.
We are the power behind the ITNJ. Add your voice. Sign the treaty.